back here, and he's already up, so he'll be, making some noise. Don't mind it for a while. हाँ बेटे. Anyway, so मैं थोड़ा सा बात, if you right, and start slowly and take you ahead with me, right? Everybody should be on board now. And some of you did send me some very wonderful answers. I must, congratulate you for that. Very good, very good. That's how you're supposed to be doing it. Keep the momentum. Keep the momentum. It's important, right? So as I was saying, there are certain Neolithic sites in India that I would like to first discuss and take the discussion ahead from that point. Right? So if we see all the, what should I say, Neolithic sites in India. Remember, first thing that you should understand, India is such a huge country, so diverse geographically, that it cannot have one timeline. It has regional timelines. And there also a lot of complications occur. For example, Chalcolithic and Neolithic seem to be coexisting, etc., etc. Right? For the current discussion, what I'm trying to tell you is that the first Neolithic settlement, which is important for us, is undoubtedly Mehergarh. Right? This is near Bolan River or Bolan Pass. Mehergarh. Right? Why is it important? It is important. You will understand once we discuss, because this is what you can say. These are forerunners of Harappan civilization. So you will understand them better when we take up this topic in a while, right? The other Neolithics, I would just like to briefly mention them as well here itself. But remember, their timelines are different. Mehergarh is somewhere around 7th millennium BCE. Right? So somewhere roughly people quote 7000 BCE. This is where, we start noticing archaeological signs of a camping ground at Mehergarh, which soon evolves into a village and then into a town. Right? So Mehergarh is something which we will look at slightly separately. The other Neolithic cultures, let's look at them, their regions and their timelines. In the Gangetic Valley, we have the Belan River Valley. Belan River Valley. Right? This Belan River Valley, it again is an extremely interesting find here. Right? This is your region of Pratapgarh, Allahabad, and Varanasi. Right? This region. So Belan River Valley, we find some very interesting sites who are called as Damdama, Mahagara, Chopani, Mando. I'll write few names here. Damdama, right? Why are they important? Because they seem to, of course, they are also Mesolithic sites. We find a lot of Mesolithic, microlithic tools, etc. as well. We find signs of domestication of cattle. We find cattle hoof marks. Very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. Cattle pens we find. You understand what a cattle pens, right? Where you can actually tie them all at one place. Right? So very nice. At Chopani Mando, again, very surprising, you find the earliest evidence of pottery coming up in the world around 9000 BCE. These are some phenomenal finds. These are some phenomenal finds. Dateline will be 70s, 80s, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, right? Uh, and at this Belan River Valley, at around same time when at Mehergarh, we notice evidence of wheat and barley domestication. You recall I talked about the process of domestication. So at the same time when at Mehergarh domestication is going on of wheat and barley, here at Belan River Valley, वो Bolan River है, ये Belan River है, right? At Belan River Valley, at these sites, we notice evidence of rice cultivation. Now, wheat has been cultivated in West Asia before. Wheat has been domesticated earlier, but rice cultivation, which is going on here, it seems to be the earliest. I mean, it is definitely one of the earliest. I mean, there are a couple of other contenders, one from China, one from Southeast Asia. But yes, this could be the winner as well. Oriza Sataiwa, that's the breed of rice that they were domesticating. Very interesting, right? So these are a couple of moving on. Once we leave this Gangetic Valley region, in eastern India, so to speak, right? When I say eastern India, I'm talking about entire your Bengal, Bangladesh, Bihar, that kind of a region, right? Assam, right? So if I look at eastern India, there are a couple of interesting ones there as well. Chirand is one. This dates back to somewhere around 2500 BCE. So remember, this is the date line is now not as far as 7th millennium BCE. Do you realize what it means? That the other regions apart from Gangetic Valley and let's say Mehergarh in northwest, others were introduced to Neolithic and settled agriculture kind of a lifestyle much later. Makes sense actually, isn't it? Makes sense, kind of. There may be other epicenters which may come to know, but yeah, most of us were still in very, what should I call, nomadic, hunting, gathering, that kind of a stage. Wouldn't you agree? Right? So in east, we notice one important site, which is Chirand in Bihar. And another one is, I am not too sure if I'm getting the spelling or the pronunciation right. Daojing Hedig. Yeah, Daojing Hedig. This is in Assam. Right, these are a couple of Neolithic sites that you can keep in mind here. Right. Chirand also shows indication of rice cultivation, but remember it's much later. Daojing Heding shows presence of bone tools. The next region which I will briefly mention again is North India. Here I want to talk about, because remember Kashmir is in news, so anything which is pertaining to Kashmir history which has been in our syllabus becomes ultra important, right? Ultra important. So North India, if we look at it, we have a couple of sites coming from Jammu and Kashmir, right? This is Barzahom. This is Barzahom is one. And yeah, another one is Gufkaral. And you know why they're popular? They're famous for circular pit dwellings. They're popular for circular pit dwellings. What does that mean? That implies that they used to dig these circular pits, gaddhe, and they would cover it with thatch roofs. And that is where they would live, because they would be warmer, right? They would be warmer because these are colder atmosphere, as you can understand, right? They're known for circular pit dwellings. This is one of the key features that you should keep in mind, right? But one more region which I would talk about here is South India. In South India, the Neolithic begins from around 2500 BCE. And a lot of people actually say that it should be correctly termed as Neolithic Chalcolithic, because copper also makes its presence felt here. Right, some sites which you can keep in mind here are Sangana Kallu, Payyam and Hallur. Atirampakkam, I've already told you, that's one site which is always, important when it comes to South. Now, why are these sites important? Why are these sites important? I should tell you whatever I briefly know. I've not visited them personally, so I am no authority here. But what I can tell you, what I've read about them is they begin with these Neolithic communities. They begin like these Neolithic communities, right? And we notice that they actually graduate slowly in around 1100 BCE. They transform into these megaliths as well, and iron producing communities as well. Iron producing communities as well. World's earliest smelters have been found here down south. Right, we were first to come up with this entire iron smelting thing. Very interesting, very interesting. I will talk about it, I'll talk about it later as well. Uh, now, when it comes to the Neolithic age of South India, these are few sites that you should keep in mind, and you should also remember one more thing. And what is that? That they were primarily into millets and barley. That is what they were domesticating and cultivating. Right, that is what they were cultivating, and primarily they were based out of hilly slopes, as you can understand, right? As you can understand. Chaliye, fair enough. These are few pointers which I thought I should discuss before I move into Mehergarh and Harappan civilization. So let's now begin that topic and see where it takes us. Now, the point is, colonial historians, right, try and understand their mindset. When they came to us as rulers, what would they want us to be convinced about? I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry. One second, one second. I have to take this call. This is from CL, right? Hi, sir. Hi, sir. क्या कह रहे हैं सर? अच्छा, ब्लैंक स्क्रीन आ रही है, ऐसा कैसे? अरे 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 अच्छा, फिर से कर दें? रुकिए। अभी आ रहा है? हाँ, अभी आ रहा है सर? Hey guys, hey. Uh, so I'll assume that everything is fine and carry on, right? Yeah, somebody asked me what is the timeline of those North Indian, right? Kashmir wala side. That's somewhere around 2000 BCE, right? Somewhere around 2000 BCE. That's what you can mention. Okay. So now let's carry on, right? So I was talking about this attitude with which colonials came in, right? So they wanted us to be convinced that they are somewhere superior to us, and they were, more importantly, they were definitely convinced that they are superior. They really believed when Rudyard Kipling wrote in the concept of white man's burden. They believed that it is the task of white men to actually civilize the rest of us. And if you see, I actually find at times that yeah, they still presume such behavior. They still do. It is so much ingrained in them. So now think about this, right? They came up with their entire Victorian sophistication, and they believe that these are the, this is a culture of, absolute useless people, naked people of no use to them. And then they start finding certain very interesting aspects about our history, which really enthrall them. And they start searching for excuses, reasons, or explanations to themselves and to the rest of the world, because they were giving a narration to everyone, right? They were giving a narration to everyone that Britishers are there for the good of India, otherwise they'll kill each other, fighting each other so much, right? So they had to somehow convince everybody that we were living in the dark, we were living in the rock. And then in 1920s, under John Marshall, we come to know of bloody Harappa, right? The find dates back to 5,000 years ago. The bricks, when you look at these bricks, those bricks were as modern as any early 20th century or the 19th century brick. They were fire baked brick, uniform proportion brick. 1:2:4 was their proportion size. Length is to breadth is to height. That's how they were so good. Right. So but now how to explain it all, uh, because there were no antecedents, so to speak, right? Because there were no antecedents, so to speak, so people thought, yeah, that it seems that these guys have suddenly emerged around uh, yeah. So it seemed that all of a sudden these guys have, just appeared around 2600 BCE from nowhere in Northwest. Ye dekho, this is Harappa, and pretty soon Mohenjo-daro. Do you see? This is how they were located. And this is, so they thought, they believed, they were convinced, and this is how they theorized. They said that these are the guys who must have come from Mesopotamia. These are the people who must have come from the Sumerian civilization, the city of Ur. They must have come here, they must have seen, and they must have, mixed with people, and they would have, established the cities. in around 2600 BCE. On the basis of simply Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, such theories were floated, and they gained actually quite good currency. But then, as time went on, people looked into the situation better. Mehergarh was discovered. Mehergarh, that was the most important discovery when it came to unlocking the antecedents of Harappa. Right, so listen to its story very carefully, right? But from around 7000 BCE, we are being told that Mehergarh was established as a camping site. Right, from there we find around seven stratas of occupation, which end around 3500 BCE. Right, so from around 7500 BCE to roughly around 3500 BCE, Mehergarh is occupied, indicating 7 levels of occupation. Remember, Mehergarh is one of the many, one of the few which must have existed. Right, this is how you can understand probably. So, Mehergarh mein bete, we have found 7 levels. And these 7 levels indicating increasing level of complexity, increasing level of skill development, increasing level of, what should I say, sophistication in terms of their art, culture, the designs which they're using, the way they are getting influenced. They even have, by the end of the time period, we find at Mehergarh at the upper levels, we find presence of lapis lazuli. What is lapis lazuli? Lapis lazuli is a semi-precious stone, blue-colored semi-precious stone. So what? Mila to gold bhi hai. We have also discovered a lot of gold here, silver here. Very precious metal. Why am I talking about semi-precious metal? I'm talking about semi-precious metal because, man, think about this. This lapis lazuli is not indigenous. Its only known source near Harappan civilization is in Afghanistan, North Afghanistan. Probably you're not impressed, but I should tell you now that this region, North Afghanistan, is beyond Hindu Kush. Right? It is beyond river Oxus. Oxus is considered to be a natural boundary between South Asia and Central Asia. Right? So that means it is beyond Oxus. That means this was in Central Asia. So they had trade contacts as far as Central Asia. That is what it implies. We also find evidence of grape cultivation. We find evidence of, wheat and barley, of course, cattle, goat domestication. Right? Cotton cultivation, man. This is world's oldest evidence of cotton cultivation. The Greek term for cotton comes from, the Greek word for cotton is actually this, Sindo. It comes from the river Sindh, because Sindh is the region where cotton was produced for the first time. Sindo. We have discovered huge amount of whorls and spindles, those things which you fit into your fingers made of clay to knit. So we have discovered that huge amount. right? Throughout Harappa. But the point which I'm trying to right now be focused upon is Mehergarh. So do you see how they increasingly become more sophisticated, and yeah, presence of bronze is noticed. Initially, copper comes into the picture, and then we start noticing presence of alloys as well. So now do you see that entire argument of Sumerians coming into the picture in around 2600 BCE like a cheetah hero and establishing these cities falls flat on its face, because we have indicated a nearer presence of people who may have come from Mesopotamia and Central Asia earlier. That's a different deal. You know, you get the point, right? End of the day, if you look at it, we all are from Africa. This modern, anatomically modern human beings, we all, this is what the current theory says, we all, I mean, our ancestors, right, Homo sapiens, they made out of Africa. This is known as OOA event, out of Africa migration. It began around 70,000 years ago. And by 65,000 years ago, Indian subcontinent was populated by anatomically modern human beings, our ancestors. They decimated the entire population of all the other apes which may have been living here. None of them survive anymore. I mean, not at least to our knowledge. You get my point here. Get my point here. So the point which I'm trying to once again make here is that Mehergarh indicates a lot more indigenous development of Harappan civilization. So such Neolithic settlements like Mehergarh, there are a couple of other names as well. For example, Kiligul Muhammad is often quoted, but I'll not ask you to go there. Remember Mehergarh, right? So Mehergarh is something which we should keep in mind. So from such sites, people in around 3500 BCE, some people also say 3300 BCE, we notice that early Harappan era begins. Right? What happens here? What happens here? This is the integration era. This is the integration era. During this time, we start noticing a presence of what should I say? Certain uniformities across, no, not across, within geographies. This is not, I'm so sorry, did I call it integration error? I'm sorry, let me repeat my argument. Let me repeat the whatever I said. Listen again. I'm saying from around 3500 BCE, we notice that Mehergarh is now abandoned. And now it seems people leave these hilly regions, right? These hilly regions near Bolan River Valley, Bolan River, right? Bolan is a very small stream. It's not a very big river or anything, right? It's a very hilly region. It's a pass, so you can understand, right? So the point is, these regions are left behind, and now it seems, other river valley sites are also being occupied. And we also find that within regions, some kind of uniformities develop. Yeah, that's the correct word. Certain regional cultures develop. This first stage, which is your 3500 to 2600 BCE. This is called as regionalization era. I'm sorry if I, said something else. I'm sorry. Regionalization era. Right? What happens here? We start noticing, for example, that one kind of pottery design becomes popular in a large geography. For example, Cote d'Ivoire pottery, and its design is found across the Indus plain. What does it indicate? It indicates that there were some regional cultures which started springing up. There was much more communication now. During the time of Mehergarh, these settlements were not communicating within themselves a lot. But during the regionalization era, there's a lot of communication, flow of ideas, flow of pottery designs, technology. You get my point. You get my point. You get my point to an extent, right? You get my point to an extent. I do not want to get into a lot of details and tell you about how it all came into the picture, but just roughly, please keep it in a point, right? If UPSC asks you this question, they will ask you only in mains examination. So remember to indicate the presence of this word, that you understand regionalization, what is the concept and how it began. How it began. You follow me? Okay, okay. The next stage that now enters the picture is one second, man. Okay, okay. One second. Let me figure out how to do this, man. क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? हाँ, हो गया. Okay. What the hell? Let me just figure this out, right? Just give me a minute, please. I'm so sorry for this. I guess I'll just log off for a minute and then sign in again. It seems to be stuck, right? Hey everyone, sorry for the botheration, dude and dudettes. Uh, all right, all right, all right, all right. I'll look into that. Don't worry. So anyway, yeah, you guys asked me about giving explanation for code DG before proceeding onward. So yeah, I would. Code DG, is basically that during this time, what we notice is that the court, that is a kind of a pottery which was first discovered at Cote DG. Where is Cote DG? Cote DG is right opposite Mohenjo-daro, on the opposite bank of Indus. Right. So at Cote DG during this 3500 to 2600 bracket, 3500 to 2600 BCE bracket, we have discovered a pottery, a kind of pottery, which has, these specific decorations. Now, because it has been first discovered at Cote DG, it has been called as Cote DGian pottery. During this time, we find the presence of Cote DGian pottery across the Indus region. So what does it indicate? It indicates greater flow, greater communication, right? There are certain other such examples as well, right? So this is why this is known as regionalization era. Regional cultures started emerging. And during the next stage, which is the integration era, I speak very loudly, I guess. I'm sorry, but I mean, so otherwise I speak very slowly, but in classes I somehow get very excited. So from 2600 to 1900 BCE, if I'm speaking too loudly, you can ask me to slow down, please. Right? I wouldn't mind. So 2600 to 1900 BCE, this is the integration era. This is called as the integration era. Because it seems that during this time, whatever the regionalization was going on, all that was combined and united sort of in one, under one authority. So all these regional currents, it seems, were integrated in kind of a supra authority. And this goes on for 800 years almost. Right, 2600 to 1900 BCE to be precise. This is how we are being told about the integration era. Right. Now, the point is, during the integration era, we notice several features, right? We notice several features. कहाँ से शुरू करते हैं बात को देखो. So when initially these cities were discovered, initially when they were discovered, I did not take my medicine, I'm sorry. I'll have to get up in a while. I'll probably do that. Let me first finish this. So what I'm saying is, yeah, when we look at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro and Kalibangan as well, right? When Kalibangan is in Rajasthan, when we look at these cities and their records, archaeological records, we find some interesting similarities, right? Some interesting similarities. Like what? Like what? For example, on the western side, On the western side, if this is north, right? On the western side, we find a raised platform kind of a thing. A raised platform, which has been often called as a citadel or acropolis, right? In several places, it was constructed of bricks. In several places, it was constructed of mud, right? So this raised platform exists. On this, several structures are constructed, right? As you can expect. The structures are again mostly brick or mud. On the eastern side, we find presence of a larger residential area. A large residential area. Right, so this is the kind of planning which seemed to exist here, and we also notice presence of parallel roads, you know, as much as possible. I have intentionally made it like this because they're not actually parallel, but yeah, they have tried to make them parallel, which is what is important, right? We cannot expect them to come up with absolutely 90-degree intersections. No, definitely not. But you get the point, right? Then there are also, we notice the intent to be there, right? We also notice streets, interlocking them in a sort of a grid iron pattern, a chessboard kind of a pattern, which indicates an understanding of civic sense, an understanding of town planning, an understanding and presence of municipal authority. I am sorry, man. I am sorry. Right? What was I saying? Yeah, this kind of a town planning seems to be present here. Right? On the basis of these similarities, people such as John Marshall, Mortimer Wheeler, they said that these are outsiders who have come up and they had a specific plan in their head, which they executed across the Indus Plain, and they called it Indus Valley Civilization, and they were very happy with it, right? But once, as I told you, once the research expanded, more sites were discovered. As I speak and as I've read, more than 1,500 sites have been discovered which belong to Harappan, catchment region, Harappan civilization. Most of them are villages, as you can expect, but several of them are, small and big towns, right? And around 5 or 6 of them are big, large cities. The prominent ones are, I'm sure you must have heard the names, right? Dekho mujhe bread pakoda mila khane ko aaj. When there were actual classes, I used to love cracking jokes, etc. But with this mood, I don't see that happening much, isn't it? Because without you guys laughing, it's no fun. One fine day, I will ask you guys to switch on your cameras, and I will, I'll see all of you. Okay? I would also introduce you to my son. Okay, so as I was talking about, so there are like 5, 6 large cities or centers that you should know. Of course, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, we have discussed. I mean, we have, I've mentioned them. Then there are other ones as well. For example, Dholavira in Gujarat, large center, right? Kalibanga in Rajasthan, right? Then some people say this thing, Rakhi Gadhi in Haryana, right? These are some other large centers which are often mentioned, right? Then there are smaller, as I was telling you, small and large towns which exist, right? For example, Lothal was there, a coastal town, Balakot, Surkotada in Gujarat, Chanu Daro, a very important one, right? These are small and large towns and cities which emerge here, right? So yeah, these are the few names that you will find mentioned during these next few hours here. I would also like to tell you one more thing. Right? I also like to tell you one more thing here. Banwale, yeah, Banwale, Haryana is also one important large center. Uh, hmm. So I will take pauses, थोड़ा सा please. अबे घर चली जाओ भाई. No, I'm not on mute. Go. So what I was trying to tell you about is our houses are not used to these live sessions at all, right? Yeah. Uh, hmm, hmm, hmm. Wait, no. Do me a favor. मेरी दवाई दे दिया मुझे. दवाई रखी है. Hmm? Hmm? Hello. Okay. So I guess now it is visible, right? Okay, so as I was trying to explain to you, yeah, that's the point. देखो याद आ गया, चमक गया. So what I was trying to, now everything is working. I hope everybody is comfortable and fine. Yeah, all right. Okay, okay. So what I was saying is that Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, they both indicate, on the western side, they indicate a citadel, right? A raised platform. And on the eastern side, there's a large residential area, which is often called as a lower town. This is the Acropolis, or what do you want to call it? Citadel, right? Citadel. This was on the western side. This was on the eastern side. On the eastern side was the lower town, which had parallel roads and perpendicular intersecting streets, which made it a kind of a gridiron, gave it a kind of a gridiron, a chessboard structure, right? Which indicates presence of municipal authority, civic sense, town planning, right? Now, the point is, on the basis of this, we cannot presume that all Harappan cities are alike, right? That's one myth that I would like to absolutely clear right at the start. Harappan cities, they should be appreciated for the way they are unique. They have certain similarities, especially if you look at Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, and a couple of others. They do have this citadel kind of a thing, and they do have some similarities. But beyond it, the Harappan civilization cities, they need to be appreciated for the diversity which they bring in. They need to be appreciated by the way in which they, what should I say, locally respond to the geographies and climate. Each of these big names, big cities, they responded as per their own needs. The cities and towns, their architecture, their town planning, if you look at it, it was not one blueprint which was being imposed on every different geography. Because remember, Harappan civilization is geographically extremely diverse. You see my point, right? You see my point, right? So there cannot be one blueprint. That is the biggest lesson which we can learn from Harappan civilization, right? That cannot be one blueprint which will serve all the purpose in all the geographies. Local response to these situations of climate will result in better town planning. So, when it comes to town, I'll now. This is something which is very interesting and very important. I'll definitely talk about it, slightly later as well. Town planning reflects ability of the ruling class to mobilize labor and collect taxes. Any kind of a coordinated action of masses indicates presence of an authority who can collect taxes. They can make them do something. Right? You get my point. You get my point here, right? They can mobilize labor and they can collect taxes. There are no currencies, but we can do it in the form of barter or different labor, etc. Okay, so a couple of other important finds that we need to talk about as the discussion proceeds here. At Mohenjo-daro, we have one very interesting structure. These are, some of the structures that are considered symbolic, right? They're considered symbolic of whatever we know of these civilizations. So we should know of them right at the beginning, right? This is the Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro. This was discovered. Imagine the amount of look at the bricks, man. I mean, every time I see this image and I talk to kids, that's the first reaction that I, see. Imagine, look at these bricks, and look at the artistic depiction. Probably this is how it was. I mean, based on whatever we have, through using computer graphics, etc., people are able to recreate how it must have been, right? Of course, keeping in mind their level of technology, refinement, etc. So do you see, it had two staircases made entirely of bricks, coated with bitumen and gypsum to make it waterproof, separate inlet and outlet wells. Right? And do you notice these small cubicles around here? Strange looking cubicles around here. Probably changing rooms. Probably changing rooms. Makes sense, isn't it? So it was a swimming pool. There's also a kind of a big, large room. And this is found, remember, this is found on the citadel. The large structures seem to be present predominantly on citadels. Smaller residential structures are on the lower town, right? There's also seems to be a large hall where priests may have resided. Priests? Abhi samajh jaoge. You will get the argument pretty soon. Now, this has been often called as Great Bath. Right? This has often been called as the Great Bath. Why so? In what sense? देखो समझते हैं. Now, as you recall, I told you that we do not know. We have not deciphered yet the Harappan script, right? We just know that it is written from right to left. And probably it is of a Boustrophedon variety. Nothing beyond it. So we cannot really comment on their, social structure, religious belief. We cannot really comment on what was the intention behind this construction. Wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you agree? Right? So it could have been simply a swimming pool which was used for fun and partying and chilling. But now the argument begins, which says that if you look at modern day Hinduism, right, you would start noticing some very interesting similarities here with the Harappans. How so? In modern day Hinduism, I'm sure you would agree, we will of course trace the origin and development of Hinduism and try and understand how it is. But for the time being, you should understand just this much, that at this point of time, modern day Hinduism has a very strong tradition of ritual bathing. And this has existed right from traceable times. I mean, right from ancient medieval times, you will notice ghat, holy waters, bathing, ritual bathing seems to have a very important role in our belief system. Now, some people say that probably this pool here, right, is you get the point, right? You get the point. Probably this ritual which is contemporary today, it is linked to this point here. Harappans also had a paramount importance. They gave paramount importance to ritual bathing in their religious belief system. They also And now this is the entire argument, that although the integration era ends, the cities decline, the towns are left, the foreign long distance trade ends, yet these religious beliefs, customs, certain technologies, they survive, they persist, they localize with their neighbors, and they assimilate with the larger culture. And later, when Aryan migrate throughout, this influence will now enter the Vedic Brahmanical culture and will result into the flowering of Hindu culture. You get my point? You get my point, I guess, right? So that's how they are trying to link it. That's how they are trying to make that entire story narration go. Right. So I will try and connect it, a lot of things which will be connected to modern day Hinduism and Harappa. For example, at Harappa, you will notice presence of kajal. You will notice of, क्या कहते हैं आपका, lipstick, sindoor, cosmetics. Right. So yeah, especially sindoor and kajal, very truly Indian. Right. And we have actually discovered sindoor in that sindoor dan kind of a thing, with a stick sort of a thing as well. Very interesting discoveries, but for all I have read, these Harappans, they seem to be very fun loving and amusing, amusement loving people. They have built so many toys for their kids, man. I love them. Small little monkeys who can crawl on their own on ropes and come down. Such mechanical devices. Dices, they loved gambling. Beautiful people like us, right? Isn't it? Yeah, like us. Good people. Harappans, right? This is their the great bath. इसके देखो, you can also notice the dimensions here. Again, it's useless, futile to even attempt to remember them, but yeah, 12 by 7 by 2.5. This is something maybe you can try and keep in mind, and at least try and imagine that it was a decently sized pool, right? 12 meter by 7 meter and around 2.5 meters deep. Interesting. And made of all kiln fired bricks. Kiln fired bricks. You understand what a kiln? Kiln are like ovens, right? Ovens in which you would burn. So what would you do is, you would first take clay, you would take mud, right, or clay, and you would make these bricks in their rectangular shapes, and then you will put them in fire. These are known as kiln fired bricks. In rural India, right, we still have these kiln fired bricks being made. You can, if you ever have seen them, I'm sure some of you must have, you would notice these long large towers from which smoke is coming out. Yeah, भट्टा कहते हैं उसे इधर नॉर्थ में. I don't know तुम लोग क्या कहते हो. We here call it bhatta. ईंट का भट्टा. Anyway, now these kiln fired bricks, this is what so one point which I would like to देखें तुम लोग क्या कह रहे हो. Interesting. Yeah, Seema. I mean, oh man, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, Seema. Thank you so much, Seema, for actually mentioning it and making me say it. तभी मुझे लगता है कि मैं गधा हो चुका हूँ. मैंने देखो इतनी, I did not say such an important thing. I spoke about that thing, but I missed a very important point. Please do not be under that misconception that it was only the females who were doing it. No, this is why I love Harappans even more. I mean, even men wore ornaments. They had long hair. They would tie their hair in a bun. They would apply cosmetics, wear bangles. Right. So it was a much better, again. Now is my opinion speaking. So I will shut up. But yeah. And they would also, import. They would import a lot of cosmetics from Mesopotamia. Interesting. Okay, again. So if you see, you know what? Uh, in a sense, we have probably stereotyped genders a lot more now than back then. Maybe. Chalo, maybe we'll discuss it some other day. Anyway, but for the time being, right? For the time being, uh, let's proceed, right? Let's proceed and let's talk about a couple of other structures as well here, right? The first one, which I'm going to talk about, are the two granaries. Granaries are basically your anaj ghar, where you store houses, right? Where you keep your grains, etc. How do we know these are granaries? Uh, I mean, we have at Mohenjo-daro, we have one large hall, one large brick hall. That has been, it is the largest structure at Mohenjo-daro. It has been designated as the granary. Small amounts of grains have been discovered in the brick crevices. So maybe from that they have interpreted it, right? And they theorized that this was probably a granary, right? But for us, the granary at Harappa, right? Uh, ये भी देख लो, देखो एक interesting चीज लिखी है, पहले देख लो. Contemporary civilizations used dried bricks while IVC used burnt bricks, right? Mesopotamians also used burnt bricks, but very less. Harappans use large amount of burnt bricks. That brings me to a very important point. And I would like to talk about it right away, because we are appreciating their brick making. So you should also understand what was the implication of it. A lot of scholars believe that Harappans were not able to, the Harappan cities were not able to carry on surviving because of course, multitude of reasons. But one of the reasons may have been that they burned too many trees. They cut down so many trees because they required timber to make these wonderful bricks. They needed fire to bake these bricks. So they cut down so much of timber. Lumberjacking became such a huge activity. Conifers trees from Chenab were actually cut. Right? So that may have led to also certain, because remember, this region was already, quite arid. Any slight alteration may have, just changed the balance. And then remember, the rivers may have shifted as well. Right? So what I'm trying to say is here that, maybe there's a lesson for us. They were great at this task, but they did it probably mindlessly. And ecologically, it was not sustainable. So they had to, that civilization, the cities are lost. A lesson for us. Right? Remember, this is one of the theory. Right? So the granary at Harappa is much more important. The granary at Harappa is much more important. Why so? Because look at this. This is how it looks. Right? There are like two rows of 6 rooms each. 2 rows of 6 rooms each, and there's a walkway in the center. Right? And again, grains have been found here in the brick crevices. This is why they say these are granaries. These granaries, I'm sure you would agree, right? They are slightly an improvement over the Mohenjo-daro granary. Because now crops will, if you, let's say, store your grain, you can store different grains in different compartments. And then you can also, if there's a fire or a pest attack, your entire stock will not be lost, hopefully. Right? So it has a certain improvements over the Mohenjo-daro granary. Mohenjo-daro is in, again, it makes more sense if you look at it. Mohenjo-daro is in Sindh, fertile region. So for them, getting grains was easy. Harappa is in Punjab, it's in a hilly terrain. For them, grain was a major, it was a major problem getting grains here. So they took extreme care. They took extreme care of, what they got. The next feature of Harappan civilization, which I will now talk about, is their drainage system. Right? Uh, in almost all the cities, every house had its courtyard and bathroom. जितनी भी इनकी बड़ी से शहर हमें मिल रहे हैं, every house had its courtyard and bathroom. Right, in Kalibanga, many houses had their own wells. In other places as well, there are public wells and there are personal wells as well in several houses. Every house is personal toilet. Again, this is remarkable. This is remarkable. Remember, this is the time when in Egypt, right, the pharaohs are thrashing people's back and making them, forcing them, coercing them to build large pyramids for their own ego satisfaction. Same is the case in Mesopotamia, when large-scale temple building, huge for gods and goddesses, ziggurat, they call their temples ziggurats, are being constructed. On the other hand, in Harappan civilization, we do not find any large-scale temple or construction associated with religion. What do we find then? Toilets in every house. Great. Do you realize how wonderful? I mean, this is incredible. If you look at what they did and at the time period when they were doing it, this is colossal. To have this kind of a thought, they were focusing on how to use their maths, knowledge of geometry, and applying it to lay underground drainage systems with manhole covers so that they could be regularly maintained, cleaned. Every house had a toilet which had an underground sewage system connected to the main drainage pipe. There were wells for people who come from outside the city, for guests. It seems, these are incredible people. These are incredible people. Their cities are incredible. And their thought is even more. Right? You will not find some grand structures like Egypt or Mesopotamia. But yes, if you look carefully and if you think, you will just smile. You will just smile. Right? So, Yeah, this is their drainage system, right? ये देखो, I have a couple of thankfully some images as well in the presentation. ये देखो, and this is brilliant, man. This is how you I see these kind of structures even being built today. Ziggurats, I will talk about foreign trade. Don't worry, Ashwini. Ziggurats are the temples which were built in Mesopotamia. Sumerians, right? They constructed huge ziggurat. They call their temples as ziggurat. Okay, so देखो ये इनका drainage pipe system है देखो. This is how their streets were. This is how their houses were. Some were single storied, some were double storied. Right? The houses, they never opened on the main road. They always opened on the back street somehow. Right? These are some strange things that we know about them. And there was a courtyard around which rooms were built. Again, probably this is how you would notice most of our modern day township cities as well. See the bullock cart, please. This is not a work of artistic imagination. This is how their bullock carts were. We have actually discovered bronze bullock carts. They have modeled, I told you, right? They loved modeling, small time modeling, and toy making, etc. So we have discovered a couple of bullock carts, bronze bullock carts. They look precisely like that. Their wheels, notice their wheels. Kaise hai ye? This implies, it seems that Harappans were not aware about this kind of wheels. This is called as spoked wheel. Harappans were using solid wheels. Spoked wheel will be introduced by Aryans. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. ठीक है, these few pointers that you should keep in mind. देखो कुआं भी बना हुआ है. Interesting, isn't it? Artistic imaginations. Agriculture. Let's talk about the agriculture of this Harappan civilization, right? थोड़ा सा कुछ है चीजें देख लो जरा जल्दी से. Region was fertile then. The region was fertile then, and agriculture was being. देखो again remember. देखो एक चीज ध्यान रखेंगे बेटे. There's a large geography in discussion here. People practiced whatever they found convenient and profitable. So in valleys, in alluvial plains, wherever it was possible, agriculture was being practiced. Right? For example, in the region of Baluchistan, right? That region, Sindh region, Mehergarh region, that region, entire region, we are being told that they used Gabarband for practicing agriculture. What is Gabarband? So what they would do is they would live close to one of these rivers, right? I'm talking about in this region, remember, Sindh, Baluchistan. They practice, what I'm trying to tell you, remember, we do not find, I'll make certain points carefully. I'm saying we do not find evidence of any canal irrigation. Huge canals, the way they were built in, let's say, Mesopotamia, not here. Not here. Right? In local geographies, people used their own individual ways and adapted, you get the point, right? I mean, people adopted according to the geography and weather. So for example, in Sindh and Baluchistan region, we find presence of Gabarband. So what they would do is they would wait for the river to get flooded, right? When the snow will melt in the summer, the river will flood. बारिश नहीं होती इधर ज्यादा. Remember, बारिश यहाँ पे बहुत ज्यादा नहीं होती थी. There was not a lot of precipitation here, right? So the rivers will flood. And once the river flood, the water is going to flow to the nearby field. This is where they will build a wall, which will be called as Gabarband. And this wall will have large holes in it. So the water will pass, but the heavier sediment will stay. And this heavier sediment, as you can understand, will be fertile. And on this, they will sow their crop. This is called as floodplain agriculture. They employed gabarbans, and this is still practiced in that region. Floodplain agriculture. In some places, river valley agriculture was also going on. At Kalibanga, in Rajasthan, we find presence of plough agriculture. Plough, samajh gaye na? P-L-O-U-G-H, hull. At Kalibanga, we find presence of plough agriculture. Right? Abundant natural vegetation which contributed to rainfall, supplied timber for baking bricks and construction. Supplied timber for baking bricks and construction. कुछ कह रहे हैं आप लोग? Okay. These are few of the crops that you should remember here: wheat, barley, rye, mutter, peas, right? Sesamum, sarson. Sarson ही होता है ना? नहीं. Mustard is sarson. What is sesamum? Sesamum is, I think, till, probably, yeah, till. So wheat, barley, rye, peas, sesamum, and mustard. These are primary crops here. At Lothal, we also find evidence of rice cultivation in around 1800 BCE. But this comes later after the integration era, right? But yeah, at Lothal, we do find evidence of early rice cultivation. Right? You can keep it in mind. It can make a nice prelims question, definitely. And remember, Lothal is in Gujarat. अपने PM का state है, तो वहां से तो बन भी सकते हैं questions, जानते हो, right? So Lothal is in Gujarat. Remember, 1800 BCE, they grew rice. And Lothal is also known for a tidal dockyard. I'll talk about it. Hang on, in a while, right? The cereals were received as taxes, it seems. And they were stored in granaries and wages were paid out of it. Cereals were received as taxes. They were stored in granaries, and wages, etc., may have been paid by it, right? So it also doubled up as a treasury, if you see, isn't it? It also doubled up as a treasury. The granary must have been as important as the treasury. This is Lothal. This is Lothal, right? The river's name is Bhogav. It is called as a tidal dockyard. World's oldest artificial tidal dockyard. Impressive name, isn't it? So, but basically it's a very simple thought which they put to application. Again, a very simple thought. What they have done is they have simply built their township. It was a small coastal town, but it had a very huge implication to a role to play. So say they constructed a small township here around river Bhogav. And whenever there was now Bhogav is connected to the sea. So whenever there was a high tide, Bhogav river, jab high tide hoga, so this water will enter this man-made tank made by bricks, made up of bricks, man-made tank made up of bricks. And when this high tide comes and the water enters, boats will also come in and anchor here, load or unload whatever they bring in or go or take out. And then as the low tide comes in, they will just go down this route. This is considered as world's earliest example of a man-made tidal dockyard. Now again, notice one more thing here. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So notice one more thing here. At Lothal, right? There is no that kind of a layout. Ki, there's one citadel on the west, and then there are like, a lot of, what should I say, residential houses in the lower town. No. At Lothal, instead, we find 16 citadel raised platform, and there is no lower town. There's no lower town. All these structures have been built on raised platforms of different sizes. Can you tell me why? Look at the diagram, you will get the idea. The primary reason is that as the river may flood and enter these structures as well. This is why they're probably creating their structures over raised platforms called citadels by us. So do you realize what I'm trying to tell you? Do not look for unnecessary uniformities in the town structures here, city structure here. Each town or city responded as per their own geographical needs and climatic needs. Both their occupation as well as their town planning, everything was determined by their own local geography. Right? So this is Lothal in Gujarat. Remember, at Lothal, rice cultivation we have discovered in around 1800 BCE. Okay, so domestication of animals, yeah, in certain regions, domestication of animals was also very important. We find evidence that animals were raised on a large scale. Okay, tidal dockyard, bete, tidal dockyard. What do I mean by tidal dockyard? You understand what a tides, right? High tide and low tide, right? So whenever there was a high tide, the boats would enter this entire man-made brick tank-like or reservoir-like structure, which is here, right? This is like a brick tank, which they have constructed. So when there's a high tide, water is going to enter through here, and the boats will also proceed onwards and park somewhere around here, offload their stuff, get new stuff, and as the tide recedes, they're just going to flow like this and go their way. So any port or dockyard is somewhere where the ships, or boats dock. And because it is working on the concept of tides, it is known as a tidal dockyard. Yeah. Okay, so that's how the tidal dockyard at Lothal seems to be operational. Acha, now let's talk about certain animals, the domestication of animals, which was also going on, and we find evidences here, right? Ox, sheep, buffalo, goat, pigs. These are, I'm sure you would agree, Smith. There's nothing new that you can, should keep in mind here. Humped bull seem to be their favorite. Why am I saying that? Because humped bull was how should I say it? Okay, abhi ke liye keval itna. For the time being, just remember humped bull was definitely a favorite, right? And it seems that unicorn also, the unicorn motif as well, an animal which we call as unicorn, they are also constructing a similar kind of a motif. And these are found where? They are found in seals. I have not told you what are seals, so wait and give me some time. You'll get it. Don't worry. Dogs, cats, asses, and camels. Evidence of horse is doubtful. There is an evidence of horse as well. Horse domestication coming from evidence of horse coming from one of the Harappan sites. That site is again that's important for us. It is again from Gujarat. This is Surkotada. Surkotada. Right? At this site, At this site, we have discovered some skeletal remains of a horse, but it is doubtful. Why? Because some say it could be a wild ass. It could be a. Remember, in Gujarat, there is the world's only wild ass sanctuary. जंगली गधों का sanctuary वहां पे है. So world's only. So it could be a wild ass as well. Some people argue. Why is it important? It is important because horse are generally understood to be from temperate climates. And it is believed that horse enter the scene with Aryans. So what are they doing at Harappan level? That is the question which it raises. You get my point here? Yeah, that is why it is often mentioned in books. There is a doubtful evidence coming from Surkotada of a horse. You get me? I'm so sorry. Harappan was not horse-centric, right? They are definitely not horse-centric. They are, we do not find much signs of horse. On the other hand, when Aryans come in, they would be absolutely in love with horses. They would be in absolute love with horses and cattle, especially horses. They would be horse-centric. Right, elephants and rhinoceros were present in KBM. You know, we find their motifs and designs present and as well. In Mesopotamia, elephants were not present, right? And Mesopotamia, rice was not present. Right? These are two things which make Harappans and Mesopotamians also different. Okay, so in terms of their art and craft, right? In terms of their technology and crafts, I should probably now be speaking about that aspect as well. Because remember, agriculture was important, but their economy was much more varied. It was not just agriculture. There was a lot of technology, crafts, and there was a lot of trading as well. So if you want to understand their economy, you have to look at all those aspects. We have understood agriculture. Now I'm looking at the next aspect, the technology and the crafts. This phase, by the way, this phase of 2600 to 1900 BCE, yeah, it may have been, you know, they could have been, but again, what we need to remember is they were not horse centric. Some of them may have encountered horses in strange circumstances. That is definitely possible. That is definitely possible. Right? And when somebody is making a movie, I think we should give that person some kind of a creative freedom. Isn't it? We should give that person some kind of a creative freedom. Okay, so as I was saying, between 2600 to 1900 BCE, this is when those large cities emerged, right? And this phase has often been called as the first phase of urbanization of the Indian subcontinent. Because this is for the first time when urbanization happens. What is urbanization? Urbanization is emergence of cities. What are cities? Cities are those regions or those areas where majority of population, majority of working force is involved in non-agri based activities. They are not farming. They could be merchants, they could be, you know, XYZ, whatever, but they could be priestly class, they could be warriors, they could be etc., etc. But they will not be farmers. That's how you understand the difference between city and a village. right? So the emergence of cities require by its very definition that there should be a rural surplus, which can, feed these guys who are not involved in agriculture, right? So remember, any development in technology and crafts, it assumes that there was an agricultural surplus present, right? So there's this phase is known as urbanization first phase, the urbanization 1.0. These cities, will emerge and then they will vanish, and then there will be next phases of urbanization, as you can understand, which I will of course talk about, right? So bronze, right? Bronze, as I was telling you, bronze had, we have understood how to make bronze, and bronze smithery must have become a very important profession, right? Bronze smiths must have become a very people who were in demand. Okay. Apart from this, if we look at it, there are several, I think I should make those points, right? We find large number of vats and dyes present across Harappan sites. What are vats and dyes? Vats are your basically large bowl shaped क्या कहना चाहिए मुझे, stone vessels kind of a thing for mixing dyes or colors. Harappans have basic idea of chemistry as well. They would mix colors and make dyes. For what purpose? You remember they were into cotton cultivation. So they would also weave cotton textile and they would dye them in different colors. And it is believed that this was a very profitable trade with Mesopotamia and Persian Gulf cities. This cotton must have been a major source of expression of their artistic sense. So they would color these textiles with different patterns, and this would be exported to Mesopotamia. In return of you know what? Silver, Mesopotamian silver. How do I know that? Why do I say that? I say that because Harappan cities, the entire northwestern region of India, we do not find any indigenous source of silver, but Harappan cities, they have revealed a lot of silver. And when you analyze that silver, it seems to originate from Mesopotamia in terms of amount of impurity, etc. You get the point, right? It seems it has originated from the mines of Mesopotamia and that region, nearby region. Interesting. So it seems that they had this very profitable trade of textiles, right? And they must have now this textile sadly doesn't survive. This doesn't survive, but the silver survives. The silver survives, and large number of wax and dyes survive. So probably we can connect the dots. We can connect the dots. Bead making is another very important craft. Bead making, which is very prominent here. Bead making, brick making, of course, you can understand. Brick making was a very important craft as well. Bead making and ornaments of shell, they were also made. You understand what are beads? Beads are your semi-precious stones in which holes are drilled. In which holes are drilled. And then necklaces or belts, etc., are ornaments are created. And these ornaments, this is absolutely wonderful. These ornaments have been found in the grave goods of Egyptian and Mesopotamian kings. In the graves of Egypt and Mesopotamia, we find the skill and crafts and skill, the skill and artwork of these guys. They made these beads and necklaces of semi-precious stones, and they were exported. On the other hand, if you notice, the Harappan graves are comparatively, they do not provide us a lot of grave goods. There are no magnificent graves because it seems Harappans, as you can expect, they are a lot more this worldly, realistic. They believe in leaving their possessions for their generations, for future use. They are extremely utilitarian. And that you can see from their thought as well. Yeah, they are not focusing on those grand structures. They're focusing on basics, essentials. Their tools, you would notice, their tools, they lack any artistic design, but they're extremely efficient. Very uniformly made, known for their efficiency. They would not have much design because remember, they would express themselves probably in these cloths using colors, etc. But otherwise, they were much more utilitarian. They would focus on the utility of the, and then they would make those wonderful small models and, toys. Right. So neither copper nor tin was locally available. So not many bronze tools are found. Right, these are certain limitations you should remember, right? Mesopotamia may, Egypt may, we find large number of, in China, we find large number of bronze tools, etc. But in India, we do not. We do not, right? Khetri mines in Baluchistan, yahan se, this is where they got their copper from. Tin was from Afghanistan, Hazaribagh and Bastar region. It was not easy to get it, and there is a very low percentage of tin, and hence they are mostly relying on arsenic. Khetri mine is in Rajasthan, by the way, right? There were several Chalcolithic cultures present here, which were contemporary to Harappa, and they must have given them copper, isn't it? Woven textile and textile impressions, spindle holes, I've already told you about them, right? I've already told you about them. Boat making, masonry is your stone cutting, and brick boat making were prevalent too. This is now what I should be talking about. Seal making and seals are one of the key features of Harappan civilization. More than 2,000 seals have been discovered. They are of the size of your palm. Right, they're of the size of your palm, square shape may or in rectangular shape, made either of terracotta is clay, or some kind of a soapstone is also used, which is easy to carve. Right, and on these seals we would find one image or a symbol and certain characters of Harappan script written. One image and certain characters of script written. To what purpose, people have not been able to completely be at one of one opinion here, but what I will tell you is that these seals have been discovered as far as Persian Gulf cities, as far as Mesopotamian cities, and similarly certain Mesopotamian seals and Persian Gulf cities, unki seals, their seals, they have also been discovered at some of the Indus cities, Harappan cities, indicating that probably they were related to trade. They were related to trade. They had something to do with trading. Right, seals and sealings, this is how they're called. As seals are, of course, your those patches which I was talking about, right? And sealings are their markings, right? Their markings or their stamps are called as sealings. So seals and sealings we have discovered. We'll look at it, right? We'll look at it. The Harappan potters, they also produced some very good glossy and gleaming pottery. This pottery is known as RBW, that is red and black ware. Red and black ware. It was given a red slip. It was given a red slip. Slip is basically a kind of a liquid clay coat which you give it, so that it has a shine. And once it dries down, there was a black decoration, right? Red slip and black decoration. I'll show you some images maybe. Now let's look at the trade and commerce aspect of their economy, the trade and commerce aspect. The trade of Harappans, right? The trade of Harappans. देखो, the trade can be understood at three levels actually. The trade can be understood at three levels. The trade which was going on between the Harappan towns and cities and the villages. एक तो ये trade हो रहा होगा कि नहीं हो रहा होगा, right? There will be a trade which will be going on between the villages, right? Or let me put it this way. Okay, let me put it this way. At one level, the trade would be going on between the Harappans and the outsider. Outsiders who are, who are, what should I say, who are less developed than them. This will be your Neolithic, Chalcolithic communities around them. The nomads and the hunters and the gatherers around them. You following me? You following me? Let me repeat. I'm saying the Harappans at one level are going to engage with those people who are less developed than them. Right? This is where they will typically get a lot of food, of course, agriculture, etc. I mean, your grain, etc. They will get. And they would also get a lot of raw material in this manner. They will engage themselves with Neolithic and Chalcolithic communities, for example, those living around Khetri mines for copper. They would also engage nomads, because nomads have regular seasonal migratory paths. It is not necessary that they will go to Afghanistan to procure lapis lazuli. They will ask the nomads to get it for them. You're getting my point here? They would also engage with the hunters and gatherers for things such as honey. And you get my point. You get my point. Maybe medicinal plants, etc. So at one level, this is the trade which is going on. At the second level is the trade where we would find the trade within the Harappan centers. Within the Harappan centers. Right? Any example, any example, any example. For example, we are being told that there's a site in Sukur, Sindh. During the integration era, most of the stone tools, your axes, your chisels, stone tools seem to be manufactured here at Sukur, because the stone here seems to be of a preferred quality. Right? So these stones would be cut here, the tools would be made here, and then they would be transported to other regions wherever required. For example, to Chanhu Daru. I am giving you very selective names. Chanhu Daru. Right? Chanhu Daru is also a site in Pakistan, and Chanhu Daru is considered a factory site. We have discovered workmen quarters here. That means people who were bricklayers were living separately, people who were bead makers, they had separate quarters and factory sites. People who were at Chanhu Daru, I'm talking about, remember, at Chanhu Daru, there are bead makers, then there are, bangle makers, shell ornaments bana rahe hain. Right? Similarly, at Lothal, we also find such workstations, factory sites. And we also find it at Balakot. Right? So these sites, the tools are being prepared here, and they are then being distributed to these other sites. So this is the kind of, this also indicates presence of a central authority, if you notice. It indicates presence of a central authority who could coordinate such kind of an action. Site at Sukur and Sindh creating and manufacturing tools, and then they being transported across Harappa. Similarly, uniform weights and measures made of shirt and jasper. These are semi-precious stone. छोटे छोटे, तराजू में तौलने के लिए वजन, छोटे बड़े हर साइज के, uniform weights and measures, right? Small, big weight of different sized cubes, they have been discovered in all the towns and cities, be it as small as Aladino. Aladino is considered as the smallest of the Harappan settlement town, and even that has these weights and measures. Right? So on one scale, at one level, they are going with dealing with those outside who are lower in development stage, at lower development stage, right? And they're getting basically raw materials from them. Then there's this trade within the Harappan centers. And then finally is the inter-civilizational trade. This is the trade which goes on with between Harappa and others. Others as in your Sumerians and Persian Gulf cities, etc. Right? So if we look at Mesopotamia, if you look at Mesopotamia, I told you that this is the time when Sumerians are present, right? Sumerians are present here. And we hear of Sumer, the Mesopotamian script has been deciphered. So Mesopotamian court records are available to us. So if we look at contemporary records of Mesopotamia, court records of Mesopotamia, we find mention of Meluha. We find mention of Meluha. right? This is believed to be the region around Indus. And this is the term which the Mesopotamians used for the Harappan civilization, Meluhans. Now, if you look at their court records, you would be surprised. Their kings are claiming, that our kingdom is so prosperous that ships from Meluha and Dilmun and Markan come and anchor here. Then we are also being informed in another set of court records that there were a set of Meluhan merchants. There was a Meluhan merchant colony present in Mesopotamia. Merchant colony, Meluhans वहां पे जाके रह रहे थे. We also find evidence of presence of a Meluhan translator in the court of Sumer. In the Sumerian court, there was a Meluhan translator to translate the language and probably the script as well of Meluhans. How interesting, how interesting, how interesting, right? I've already mentioned about the seals, right? How the seals have been discovered. Dozens of seals have been discovered in Mesopotamian and Persian Gulf cities. And similarly, we also notice Mesopotamian seals and Persian Gulf cities and Indus cities, Harappan cities. And we also notice Persian pottery here at Lothal, indicating that yes, there was definitely inter-civilizational contact and trading going on between these two Bronze Age civilizations. Right? How did they manage this transport, etc.? Land as well as boat transport were used. Land, they used ikka, right? Ikka or bullock carts without spoked wheel. Remember, they were using it with solid wheels, right? And they also used boats. We know that because we have discovered images of boats and bullock carts. They also had a trading colony, trading outpost in northern Afghanistan. You remember I told you in northern Afghanistan, the northernmost site that has been discovered of Harappan civilization is called as Shortugai. It was a trading outpost. It was, it was established to ensure continuous connect with Central Asia so that they carry on getting raw materials which were required. Harappa as well. You remember I told you that Harappa, the terrain, if you see, is not very fertile. But still Harappa was maintained because it was on a very important trade route. It was on a very important trade route. What I'm trying to tell you here, I think now is the time to make that argument. Harappans were probably being ruled by a set of mercantile class. That is why such trade, trading outposts were being established and maintained by state. No private individual or personal man could have done it. Individual could have done it in its personal capacity. It was state's work to establish such faraway trading outposts as Shortugai and Sutka Jendor. And at Harappa to ensure that everything is maintained because it was important for trade. So maybe it was a class of a merchant community which was dominating the operations here. Could have been. So trading was very important. This also has been suggested as one of the reasons behind the decline of Harappan cities eventually. Because as we would notice, this trade line would get influenced and Harappan cities may have declined because of this. Right. There will be a new, kingdom between Mesopotamian and this region. Right. There would be a new player and they would destroy all the trading which was going on. I'll talk about it in due course. The trading outpost in northern Afghanistan is a Shortugai. uh, shore to guy. Right? Mm. Now, the point is, no temples, no religious structure except maybe the great bath for ablution purpose. And there are 7 fire altars. ये भी लिख लो यहीं पर. There are 7 fire altars discovered at Kalibanga. This you should keep in mind. And remember one more point about Kalibanga. This is also very important. Kalibanga is in Rajasthan. 2 discoveries important. 7 fire altars at Kalibanga have been discovered. And we've also discovered signs of plow agriculture. We have discovered a furrowed field indicating evidence of indicating plow agriculture. So why is that important? Because if plow agriculture, if people at Kalibanga knew of plow agriculture, that indicates that they must have generated surplus. Because plow agriculture, you would agree, will produce more. It will produce more. है बात सही कि नहीं? So furrowed field B we have discovered. So because there are no large scale religious structures or temples, etc., then probably we can say that this is not like Mesopotamia. This is not like Mesopotamia. This cannot be a class of priests which may have been ruling, Harappans. IVC doesn't seem to be, conquest centric. There are not many signs of warfare or violence. Not many weapons are also found. Not many weapons are also found. There's no signs of any large scale warfare or bloodshed going on here, as in other contemporary civilizations. Right? So they definitely seem different. So probably they are much more trade centric than conquest centric. Whenever you're writing answers here, remember to use words such as probably and maybe. Because remember, these are just speculations on the behalf of so-called scholars, right? Probably ruled by a class of merchants, not many weapons. This lacked an effective warrior class, probably. I would like to talk about Dholavira, right? I skipped a slide concerning that as well. मैं अभी एक बार तुम्हें explain कर रहा हूँ Dholavira. This again is the most important city of Gujarat, Dholavira, discovered in 1966. It is situated on an island called Khadir. Interesting. In the great Ran of Kutch, Khadir Island pe, Ran of Kutch mein, this is Dholavira. And if you recall, I told you, right? Citadel, Acropolis, right? That is the kind of structure to expect in Harappan cities. But see, at Dholavira, we have 3 distinct, क्या कहना चाहिए मुझे? At Dholavira, we have 3 distinct, what should I say, divisions rather than 2. There are 3 distinct subdivisions. Instead of just one upper town or a citadel and a lower town, we have a citadel, we have a middle settlement, and we have a lower settlement. What do I mean? I'll just show you. Yeah, I think this is good. This is good. You should see. This is Lothal. Rice cultivation, 1800 BCE, Gujarat. Surko Tada. This is horse bones. Doubtful horse bones. This is Dholavira, Khadir Island. Right? This is Dholavira. They're in a straight line kind of a thing. Nice. Now you can remember actually DSL. Yeah. Important Harappan sites. in Kutch. So yeah, this is how the Dholavira town plan looks like. There is a kind of an upper platform, but then there is a middle platform as well. And then there is a lower town. Now, some people say that the presence of a citadel and a lower town indicates social stratification, that there was an upper class and there was a lower class. Upper class would live at citadel and lower class would live at the lower town. Okay, chalo, point bought. But think about it from the perspective of Dholavira now. So at Dholavira, what are we claiming? At Dholavira, we are saying that at the citadel, there will be the upper class, and then there will be a middle class, or maybe a set of ministers or bureaucrats who are staying there. So it will be like a fort within a fort. This is called as bailey. This kind of a structure is called as a bailey. So probably there's a bailey here. And then there's a lower town. Kuch aise. Citadel. Then above that citadel, there's another citadel. And then there is a lower town. Something like this, just to simplify. So there will be a castle here. Another one here. So castle within a castle. This is called as bailey. And then a lower town. Very interesting. So now are we saying that there was a middle class as well? And then now let's also talk about your Lothal. Lothal pe to I told you there were 16 citadels and no lower town. So what are we claiming there? That there was communism there? There was no social stratification, completely egalitarian society. Are we saying that? No. Remember, there are no fixed rules here. These are responding to local needs and geography. At Lothal, the needs were different. At Mohenjo-daro and Harappan, the needs were different. At Kalibanga, the needs were different. At Dholavira, the needs were different. At Dholavira, as I'm telling you, it is in Rann of Kutch. It's a very, very arid region. Water is scarce here. So we notice at Dholavira, great amount of, what should I see? What should I say? Effort, great amount of effort being put into water management and water harvesting. Do you notice this? Right? There are a lot of reservoirs around the town. There are reservoirs which are interconnected. And using some primitive methods of gates and pipes, they can actually transfer water from one reservoir to a different one. So let's say one part of the town is facing water scarcity. So then water from some other part which has excess water can be transported and transferred to this reservoir. So some excellent water harvesting. Right, some excellent water harvesting technique we notice here, water conservation technique we notice here. And again, it indicates just one thing, that how people took initiative and responded locally. Yeah, you will get this PPT. Don't worry about this. You will get all these PPTs. Right? Somebody, one second. Siddhant, that's a very good question. Was social hierarchy and stratification present or not in Harappan civilization? Siddhant, let's wait for a while. I promise. Give me some time. I'll come to that aspect. It's a very, very wonderful question. It's a fair question. Social stratification, to put your question in, slightly, just to tell you, yeah, social stratification and hierarchy was definitely present. Remember, they were trading, there were so many professions, they're bound to be a hierarchy and stratification. And that we can notice even in their grave goods, whatever little we get. There are certain graves which are completely, we find broken potsherds and broken, nothing much. But there are certain graves where we have discovered even tiara and crown, etc. But of course, there are no comparison to the grand burials of Mesopotamia and Egypt. So social hierarchy stratification, definitely there. Acha, ek baat aur, I would also tell you one more thing here. Remember, how does state emerge? Why will state emerge? There are a lot of theories here. I would just tell you one simple point here. People often believe, a lot of scholars would agree here, that state probably emerges. State or some kind of taxation machinery, a king, anything of that kind will emerge once there is social stratification in the society. That means, what is social stratification? Social stratification is not just the existence of rich and poor. No. Social stratification is when there are multiple stratas of society. Upper middle, lower middle, you get my point, right? So there are such stratification. Once such stratification begins, that is when state emerges. Why? State emerges to manage the conflicts between these stratas, these classes. So it is believed that social stratification, internal social stratification of a society, is essential for the development of state. And beyond any doubt, internal social stratification हमें हड़प्पा में दिखता है. If you look at the size of the houses itself, that speaks volume. There are small houses, there are larger houses. Right? Okay, now let's come to the aspect which is often very much debated. This is religion in IVC times, religion in IVC times, right? So give me like 4-5 minutes break, please. Will you do that? 4-5 minutes break top, right? I will be back. I'm just unmuting my video. You guys can also go and maybe chill for a couple of minutes, and then I'll begin with your proto Shiva, mother goddess, and religion, and those kind of things. All right. And Madhura Gode, can you tell me what are you talking about, this Bandhani art? I was not able to get you, follow your chain of thought. Bandhani, what do you mean? Why are you referring it here? Right? Give me 5 minutes now. Hi everyone, back again. Uh, all right, Mugdha, you were mentioning about Bandhani. All right. Yeah, but that will evolve much later. That will evolve much later. But yeah, yeah, you can say that. Uh, okay, let's talk about religion during the times of IVC, Harappan civilization. Hmm. As I told you, right? As I told you, no, not many temples or religious structures emerge out here, right? Uh, there are certain uh, these are terracotta mother goddesses. These are terracotta mother goddesses. They are made of clay, and as you can see, they are very crude work. They're very crude work, but they're found in large numbers, wearing large number of ornaments, and they're wearing, as you can see, belts, necklaces. Uh, you can also notice their headdress. That's also very interesting. Also notice the amount of jewelry which they're wearing in their neck, right? And these have been variously interpreted as mother goddesses, right? Mother goddesses. Some of them also have plants growing out of their vagina, and that has been taken as uh, a sign of presence of fertility cults, and that probably Earth, Mother Earth, was worshipped. If you see, this is precisely, in fact, again, I would like to relate it to modern day Hinduism. In modern day Hinduism, there is something which is called as Shakambari Devi, right? She's also considered to be a part of the fertility cult and worshipped as a mother goddess. So a lot of people link these mother goddesses to Shakambari Devi and say that probably the origin lies here at Harappa, right? These terracotta goddesses, right? By 6th century CE, as I've mentioned here, right? By 6th century CE, worship of female goddess became prominent in Hinduism, right? So I mean, worship of female goddess was not a prominent part of the Aryan culture, the Vedic culture, which we'll talk about shortly in the next class, hopefully, right? It was not a part of their culture. But we see by 6th century CE, when Hinduism as such evolved, there, the concept of female worship or Shaktism and concept of goddesses such as Shakambari Devi becomes very dominant, indicating that Harappan elements survived, probably, right? As they assimilated in other regions, other Chalcolithic, Neolithic communities, they survived. And once Brahmanical culture expanded outside the Gangetic plains, it encountered these and it assimilated them. Right? It's a very complex process. We will talk about it later when the timing is more appropriate. But yes, you get the point which I'm trying to make here, right? Egypt may also, we get a lot of these mother goddesses. Some people say that because there's just one male god. Actually, there's just one male god, so to speak. Again, we do not know whether these are gods and goddesses. I must clarify this. We are just speculating because we do not know their script. So, but there's one male god, or one male figure which we find, which has been called as Proto Shiva by John Marshall. Which has been called as Proto Shiva by John Marshall, right? Uh, so some people say that because there are so many female goddesses, that probably Harappans were matriarchal. Their society was matriarchal. Uh, that will be speculating too much. Because presence of mother goddesses will not necessarily imply that. Will not necessarily imply that. We need to know about what were the property rights and exact gender scenario. We cannot be sure about that. Right? Too less evidence to comment on that. Too less evidence to comment on that. Right? The male deity, the proto Shiva, right? The proto Shiva. ये है देखो. This is proto Shiva, right? Surrounded by 4 animals, buffalo, rhinoceros, tiger, and an elephant, and 2 deers sitting here, wearing an interesting horned headdress. Right? Lot of people, and do you see these are your alphabets. These are your alphabets. This is a seal. This is a seal. This is a seal. This is the Pashu, people call him Proto Shiva or Pashupati. And again, they link him to modern day Hinduism concept of Shiva. They say that there are some phenomenal, what should I say, similarities between this fellow here and the concept of Shiva, the way he's worshipped in modern day Hinduism. Like, what are those similarities? I would point out 4 of them to you. 4 of them to you. All of them are equally interesting. Dekho, first is this. Notice his face. It has been depicted in, it's 3-faced. Trimukh. It is 3-faced. It is 3-faced. Now, this Trimukh form of Shiva became a very strong component of Shaivism later on. In fact, to tell you something right away, when we discuss about Elephanta caves, I will show you this image of Shiva in Trimukh form. Elephanta caves. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, right? Beautiful. Shiva in Trimukh form. So this is one similarity which you should keep in mind. Pashupati mein, the Banda which is sitting here has been showed 3-faced, just like Trimukh form of Elephanta. Right? Another similarity that you need to keep in mind is look at the amount of animals here. Shiva is worshipped in one form as a Pashupati. In Nepal, there's this very wonderful temple, isn't it? Pashupati Nath, which was recently visited by Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well. And, so Pashupati Nath. So Shiva is worshipped as a Pashupati Nath. That means Lord of the beasts. And here, these beasts, these animals, they are shown as if they are worshipping this fellow. Another similarity with modern day Shaivism. Two similarities. The third one, notice the posture. Notice the posture. This posture is a Padmasana. It's a yogic posture. So now this seal gives us 2 information. First of all, it indicates the antiquity of yoga and its posture. Some of its postures, they are quite, as you can see, that they're very old. And also, I would like to tell you one more thing. In modern day Hinduism, Shiva is considered as the founder of yoga. He's considered as the Mahayogi. So some people say because this fellow is sitting in a yogic posture and Shiva is considered as a founder of yoga, so maybe they're associated. And maybe the origins can be traced at least till here. They may go back even further, but they can be definitely traced back till here. You get the argument. You get the argument. These are three. The fourth one, and which I find something which is really, really interesting. Phallic worship is something which is very prominent part of modern day Hinduism. Phallic worship is worship of reproductive organs, your ling and yoni. Their worship is something which is again very intriguing aspect of Tantrism, Shaktism, modern day Hinduism in several ways. Right, and Shiva's Shivaling is, of course, is an object of worship, and not only that, Shiv is often represented with an erect penis. And if you notice carefully, even this proto Shiva, he has been represented in a form with an erect penis. This is called as ithiphallic representation. Ithiphallic. Harappan civilization provides a lot of evidence of phallic worship. They also provide a lot of evidence of tree worship, animal worship, snake worship. And people practice their own set of beliefs and customs in their own diverse ways. There was no central authority and control over these thoughts. Interesting, interesting. And that is the reason they survive, isn't it? If they were being coerced over everybody else, then the moment urbanization ended, these would have also ended. But they kept on surviving because they were chosen by people of their own accord. It reflected their own tendencies. And hence they survive. Right? Tree and animal worship, people was considered sacred, people motif. Right? This heart-shaped motif is something which is, again, very popular. And they seem to be considering it sacred, and I'm sure you would agree, right? At least people, जो लोग भारत में पता नहीं यार हिंदू जो अपने आप को कहते हैं तुम हिंदू शब्द बड़ा मुझे I don't know, I find it slightly odd. I don't know, the more I have read about it, the more I've studied it, I have started finding it slightly odd, because the term has been created hardly 100 and 150 years ago, and we talk about it in a context which is thousands of years ago. So it is like I'm talking about capitalism in, Harappan civilization. So I get really uncomfortable with that idea, right? But still, if you see, at least, I have personally seen in my household, people has always had a very sacred appeal to it, right? In those routine worships and all, I've often seen people being used. I don't know about you guys, how you have experienced it, but yeah, I have. And in fact, even in ancient times, if you see, right, Buddha is supposed to have gained his enlightenment beneath the people tree, Bodhi tree, right? तो इसको बड़ा ही sacred माना जाता है. Right, very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting, very interesting. If you're making this point, interesting, Bikram, very interesting. I like the way you think, man. Quite possible, quite possible. Yeah, in fact, Shiva has been, represented in three-headed form, four-headed form, five-headed form as well. Right. So remember, a lot of these things are speculations. We are looking with hindsight and trying to find out similarities to make us feel good. If Harappans would be hearing us, probably they could be, laughing back to their graves. Right? It's quite possible. I will not deny it, right? They, animism, animal worship seems to be, also, present there. Soul, spirit worship, you know, may also be present here. Uh, there's a unicorn seal which is often talked about, right? A lot of seals, I told you, right? A lot of seals have been found. Many of these seals contain uh, a design or a motif, right? I will use this word motif, motif, or a design, right? So this design is represented. It means design, right? So which is like a unicorn. Some people also call it a one-horned rhinoceros. Could be so, right? And we also find a lot of seals containing humped bull as a seal, as an image, right? As a symbol. What do these symbols represent? They could have been worn as amulets, right? They could have been worn as amulets. Uh, but again, best explanation to my mind, which is, I am most convinced about, is that it was used probably for trade purpose, right? It was probably used for trade purpose, because that may explain why it was present. But again, amulets, maybe it could be. Again, different seals may have been put to different usages. That could also be possible, isn't it? Many of these seals, they have been found in this manner, that they would have a couple of holes punched on the sides and ropes tied to them, probably. So that makes the people believe that, probably they were used to tie around merchandise, bales of cotton, right? And they would tie it using these seals, so that this merchandise can be identified on the ports of Mesopotamia, that this is coming from this merchant house, right? Maybe that is how they operated. Amulets are बेटे ताबीज ताबीज समझते हो, ताबीज जो हाथ में पहनते हैं, so that बुरी नजर ना लगे, etc. So large number of amulets are also found here. ताबीज गले में पहनते हैं यहाँ पर, right? Amulets are also found. Why have I mentioned Atharva Ved here? Because in Atharva Ved also a lot of, I will talk about Atharva Ved. It is part of the it is part of the Vedic literature. I will mention it. Atharva Ved speaks a lot about such superstitions, charms, etc. Right? So Atharva Ved may have been influenced by the folk cultures, including Harappan. I'll explain this point. Anyway, moving on. This I've already mentioned. These are some of the seals that we can quickly look and just see, right? Dekho, elephant. This is the humped bull. Very good for plows. Do you see? Because plow is not going to slip very easily. It was easy to yoke it. Yoke समझते हो ना? बांधना was easy. Humpless bulls are tougher to use as draught animals. Humped bull, very popular and very useful in Indian history. This is rhinoceros. How nice, isn't it? This is the unicorn seal. One, again, this is unicorn. They call it unicorn. Some people say it is one-horned rhinoceros, but this is not rhinoceros, definitely. This is, they call it unicorn seal, right? Again, we can say that probably the other one is not visible and it is some kind of another animal, but we call it unicorn seal. A lot of them have been discovered. And all these unicorn seal has this pottery stand present as well. This has been called as a dish on stand pottery. Notice its unique shape. Notice its unique type. What was its purpose? We do not know. Probably it had some kind of a religious purpose. Probably it had some kind of a religious purpose related to sacrifice, maybe. We can't really say. We can't really say. But the point which we can say, and I would mention it, that this dish on stand pottery was first made at Kalibanga, Rajasthan. This I can tell you. And later, this dish on stand pottery was made at Kalibanga in the regionalization era itself. And then during the integration era, this kind of pottery became quite popular. And it finds representation in these seals as well. So probably it's kind of some kind of a cult which became very powerful and popular in the later times during the integration era, which began from Kalibanga. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Do you see? All speculation, but you get my point. Yeah, could be used as hookah, man. Rohit, you think like me, man. You think like me. Shabash, Rohit Singh. Very nice. Writing was known this time or not? Okay, writing was known. This is the script. These are the script marks. It has not been deciphered yet. This is why we are calling it a proto-historic civilization. Remember, right? This is why we're calling it a proto-historic civilization. These terms have not been deciphered yet. We are calling it dish on stand because there's a stand and there seems to be, a kind of a dish. But so all these unicorn seals, right? All these unicorn seals, they will always be displayed with this kind of a structure in front. This is a pottery. This is the kind of pottery which was first made at Kalibanga. Kalibanga is the only place where it has been found in the regionalization time era. But during the integration era, this kind of pottery is found well spread. And it is also, displayed here in these seals. This has been mentioned as dish on stand pottery. Right? They also had uniform weights and measures, which were, in the ratio of 16. They seem to be increasing and decreasing in ratio of 16. And at times, fractions are also being used. Fractions are used. You remember I also told you 1:2:4 ratios they are okay with. Measuring sticks made up of bronze. How beautiful. Uniform measuring sticks made up of bronze, which were constructed at Sukur and then distributed throughout this large region. Are you impressed or not? See, this is the kind of weights which we have been, discovering. Weights in a ratio of 1/16, made out of chert and jasper. Right, and spread across sites. Not much stonework found in Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Dholavira does give you, some work in stone. I told you, right? Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, primarily it is bricks. But Dholavira, we do find some stonework. Citadel is made out of stone, dressed stone, which is dressed stone is basically stone blocks. You join them. Right, dressed stone. These are called as dressed stones, right? We find some stone sculptures as well. We find some stone sculptures as well. Stone sculptures, but again, one thing which I would tell you right at the start: these stone sculptures are not very grand. They're not very large. These are 14 centimeter, 15 centimeter, 19 centimeter. So they are around this much in length, right? Even Dancing Girl of Mohenjo-daro is just this much. So they're not into making huge sculptures or even life-size sculptures. We do not find them, right? This is the, this has been called as the bearded man or the bearded priest from Mohenjo-daro, right? Bearded priest from Mohenjo-daro. Notice how he has half closed eyes. Adh khuli inki jo aankhein hai. Notice that, right? Notice what he's wearing on his head, right? It is like a belt which has a place where a gem could be, placed. It indicates, some kind of an authority. This is called as a fillet. A fillet. Such fillets have also been found in as grave goods. Notice the beard, wonderful, stylish man, right? Ornaments, there are also places in the ear for ornaments. Notice this amulet. Notice this amulet. This is amulet or a tazib, the tabiz, tazib bol raha hu. Tabiz kind of a thing, right? Which you, tie around your arm to ward off evil spirits. And notice the shawl. Notice the design. This is called as trefoil. It has 3 leaves, right? So it is called as a trefoil pattern. This is the sort of designs they must have used when they were weaving those wonderful cloths in textiles, in those, wax and dyes that we find. They must have expressed their artistic sense on cloth, which sadly does not survive. Only some stonework survive, which may not inspire, which may not impress us to that large an extent. Right? Right? Uh, uh, he has also been often called as priest king. He may have been, the priest. He's called as a priest because notice the half closed eyes as if he's meditating, and king because he's wearing this fillet. So he may have been a priest king. But again, remember, since there are not many religious structures, we cannot say that a priestly class was in power. Then probably we would have seen larger temples or, greater rituals, etc. Maybe some evidence of that. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So the theory that probably the state was dominated by a class of merchants uh, seems more probable. Right? There's another, this torso of a naked man which has been found. Again, notice how there are sockets present for arms and legs to be added upon. Notice the fleshy belly. This is like, pretty much how we will notice the naked giant Tirthankar statues that will be created in the Mathura school of art. Right? During the post-Mauryan times. Interesting, interesting. Do you notice the sockets here? Notice the sockets here. This again is probably the most famous artifact when it comes to Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. This is the Harappan civilization. Actually, this is the dancing girl of Mohenjo-daro, made out of bronze. Again, not very tall or anything, just the size of your palm. Uh, Made by the technique which has been mentioned as lost wax technique. This technique has survived. This technique has survived because it was so ingenious and so simple. It has survived over generations, and it has, it is still practiced in various parts of subcontinent. So what they would do is, so let's say, for example, they want to carve this, make this statue of dancing girl in bronze. They would first make it in wax because it's easier to carve in wax. And once the wax model is ready, they will cover it with the clay, mud, and they will let it dry in the sun. So the mud will harden. And now they will drill a small hole carefully, not to, so as not to destroy the wax part, just to the mud part, right? So they'll carefully drill a hole in the mud part, and then they will heat it in fire. So the wax will melt and come out through that hole. And now they will pour molten bronze inside that clay shell, and they will allow it to cool down. And once it cools, they will just pick it up and throw it on the ground, and the mud portion will break off, and your bronze dancing girl of Mohenjo-daro is ready. Notice the way she is standing. Notice the way she's wearing bangles, right? The necklace. Notice the way her head is slightly bent backward, as if she is mocking us. From 5,000 years ago, as if she is mocking us, right? Sir John Marshall, right? This is what he said. He said that, it seems that these artifacts, they they are wrongly placed here. They should be placed at least 3,000 years. That means, somewhere around 500 CE. We do not find other contemporary civilizations attaining such wonderful artistic proportions in some cases. Yeah. So this is John Marshall's opinion. Modeling such as this was unknown in the ancient world up to the age of Greece. This is the bullock cart models that we have discovered. Interesting, isn't it? Okay, so yeah. Now what I would do is I would just halt here. I would leave the last 5 minutes for questions, any queries that you may have. And tomorrow we will begin from this point onwards, right? So any query you may have, kindly shoot. I would do my best to answer. Anything which you think deserves further elaboration, please proceed. There will not be any more. I don't see any other notes as such. I will upload this presentation definitely. This you will see in that Google Drive, which I've already given you, right? You get my point, right? So I'll do that. I'll upload this right away. In fact, right? I'll upload this right away. I can do that. I think I'll do that. Yeah. Actually, my Google Drive is full now. So, but yeah, I'll fix something. Don't worry. Dancing Girl was discovered in at Mohenjo-daro. Trading was done in barter only, beta. Yeah, Abhiroop. Trading was done in barter only. And Albert, the Dancing Girl was discovered from Mohenjo-daro. Could you post some sample questions to better structure our notes for this portion? Definitely, I'll do that right away. Okay, Neeraj, that's a good question. I'll take it up in a while. Let me first, give you certain questions here. Let me give you some questions here. One very simple question that you should be prepared for is a comment on the diverse nature of economy, right? Comment on the diverse nature of economy of Harappa, right? That is something which you should be ready with. Another one is another large idea that you should be ready with is their trading with the other civilizations, how it was going on. That is what you should be aware about, right? I hope I managed to cover all that, right? I hope I managed to cover all that. Uh, 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 okay. In southern India, we do not find any. Achha, some other questions. Some other questions. Yeah, religious. Comment on the nature of political authority. Comment on the nature of political authority during the mature phase of Harappa. Try and think about and write something about that. I have given you some scattered information, uh, but हाँ ये भी एक portion है which you can take up, right? Uh, word limit, keep it around 150. Keep it around 150, 200, not more than that. The questions would be something like this. देखो ऐसे करके कुछ लिखेंगे हम questions. Comment on the diverse nature of economy of Harappan civilization, right? और क्या कहते हैं उसे, diverse forms of subsistence of Harappans, right? Something on those lines, something on those lines. I'm sorry, I'm not able to conjure up a proper question, but I want you to work on that aspect, right? That how diverse they were into trades, crafts, merchants, agriculture, different kinds of agriculture being practiced. Highlight those aspects, highlight those aspects. Another aspect that you should be prepared yourself with is a diversity of religious belief which is at display at Harappa, and how it indicates, I mean, how modern day Hinduism indicates elements of continuity in these aspects, right? These are few broad questions I am asking you to work upon. I hope you have got the gist of these questions. I hope you have got the gist of these questions, right? Uh, Neeraj is asking an interesting question. Was there any other civilization in southern history? There were several cultures, but not any cities that we know of. Right? Civilization as such did not exist. Definitely certain Neolithic, Chalcolithic cultures were there with which Harappans had contact in terms of direct or indirect. You remember I told you Harappans interacted with a lot of Neolithic, Chalcolithic communities across the subcontinent. They got shells, etc., from either south, probably through nomads. Right? So yeah, those cultures exist, but cities as such, no, did not. Right? Sanjay, my phone number is 87439 72321. Right? Period of Harappan civilization, typically it is quoted as 3500 to 1300 BCE, or 3300 to 1300 BCE. But remember, there are elements of continuity, a lot of elements of continuity. Why is humping bull favorite? Humping bull is not favorite. Humped bull is favorite. that changes the meaning completely, right? Humped bull is a favorite. Why, I cannot really answer that. I cannot really answer that, right? Speculation. I mean, yeah, it could have been useful. But again, plow agriculture was not very well spread. So that cannot be the reason here. Again, we cannot say that. Why is hump bull a favorite here? I will share the PPT. Don't worry, Shubham. Gabbar Band. Okay, देखो, Gabbar Band are basically simply floodplains. Floodplain agriculture हो रहा है. So when there will be flooding, so there'll be flooding of the fields as well. They will build their field right next to the river stream, right? So when there's flooding, the water will enter the fields, and they will construct these walls with large holes around their fields called as gabarbans. So water will pass through, water will flow away, but the heavier sediment is gonna just settle down, right? And this is called as floodplain agriculture, right? Another thing, again, I was talking about raised platforms. You remember I was telling you about Lothal. Lothal, I told you that there are 16 raised platforms or citadels, and there is no lower town, right? So probably there they employed the citadels not for any class differentiation or social stratification differentiation that upper class will live on citadel, but rather to prevent flooding. Because remember, they had a tidal dockyard. So whenever there could be, heavy rain, I mean, whenever there could be, the chances of flooding could be, ever present. They're present so close to the river. So that is why maybe they built all their structures over a raised platform. So saying that citadel necessarily imply presence of an upper class can be slightly wrong, right? That's the point. The last question was the diversity of the religious belief, probably, right? The period of Harappan civilization, I've told you the states in which it was spread. We have seen the map, isn't it? Rajasthan, Haryana, Gujarat, even UP, Western UP, Jammu, Sindh, Punjab, I mean Pakistan's Punjab, etc. Right? Did you see our yesterday's answer? Yeah, I got a bunch of your answers, man, and I think Kajal, I received your answer pretty late in the night, so I was not able to check it, right, and respond to it immediately. But yeah, I think I'll be able to do it today, right? Historical question in more effective way. I mean, you can structure them. I think probably go chronologically first thing, and secondly, remember that we do not have complete information, and never be fearful of admitting it. Never be fearful of admitting it. We do not have complete information. So use words such as probably, especially for the case of ancient times, you must. Right, and if you can beat Siddhant, sorry, मैं थोड़ा सा इस तरह के ऐसे open ended question पे I'm not very good at responding to it, but yeah, what I can tell you is, if you can come up with a question which you have in mind, and maybe you can float it here in the chat box during one of our discussions, right, after the class, if you can float it, I can maybe suggest some ways, and you can also suggest some ways, and we can all learn mutually. Right? If you can come up with a question, I can definitely help. I can definitely help. What questions are expected on today's topic? I believe everything. I believe, prelims may everything is possible, and for mains as well. So yeah, take care of it. That is why, I mean, if I think it is bullshit, I will probably not speak. Yeah, plow agriculture was present at Kalibanga only. Yeah, true, true, true. deficit in terms of raw materials. Uh, Thank you so much, Lakshita. You're so beautiful, man. Thank you so much, Bete. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Uh, uh, did Harappan civilization has surplus or deficit in terms of raw materials? Uh, I think Aman, you also probably it was you or somebody else who asked me what's the Harappan's surplus civilization. In terms of agriculture, they must have produced surplus. They must have been able to get surplus from the nearby regions, either as tax or by force, whatever. They must have managed to do it, right? Raw material, or they must have traded. Raw materials as well. Raw materials as well. Force to nahi kahenge, force to galat ho jayega because we do not find any weapons or etc. But in terms of raw material, definitely they had surplus. I am not able to follow the chain of thought which you're going with this question. Maybe if you can help me with that, I would be able to better answer your question. Right? Chalo. I will wrap it up here then, right? Uh, Thank you so much, guys, for being patient, and I'll see you in the next class. Thank you, Bachcho. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much.